Welcome to The Explainer. Let's dive right into how you can take total, conscious control of your habits, your goals, and honestly, your ultimate life trajectory. We're unpacking the core mechanics of human behavior based on Tony Robbins' classic Awaken the Giant Within. We aren't just talking about, wishing for a better life. We're going to break down exactly what shapes our actions, why we constantly sabotage ourselves, and how you can harness those invisible forces to completely rewrite your future. Let's get into it. So think about where you're going to be 10 years from now. Seriously, project yourself forward. Are you actually the one charting that course? Think back to a decade ago. Where were you? What were your dreams back then? A decade literally passes in the blink of an eye. So you really have to ask yourself, are your decisions shaping your destiny right now, or are your conditions doing it for you? Because here's the harsh truth. If you aren't making conscious choices about where you're headed today, you've actually already made a choice. You've chosen to just let your environment dictate your life. And that whole phenomenon of just surrendering control, that's what we call the Niagara syndrome. Imagine your life is this massive, raging river. Most people just jump right in without ever consciously deciding where they actually want to end up. They just kind of go with the flow, right? Reacting to current events, immediate fears, whatever pops up next. It's a perfect picture of how we end up majoring in minor things. We let the environment steer us until, boom, a crisis hits. By the time they actually hear the raging water, they're 5 feet from the edge of Niagara Falls, sitting in a boat with 0 oars. So how do we survive that river? Well, we've got to wake up and start steering the boat way before it gets to that point. When you start hearing that water raging, you can't just brace for impact. No, you have to literally put both oars in the water and paddle like crazy in a completely new direction. You need a definite course. You need a map for where you actually want to go, and you have to start making high-quality decisions along the way to make sure you hit that destination. Now, the absolute crucial piece here is that a real decision isn't just some wishful thinking. It's the absolute elimination of every other option. And it's super fascinating when you look at the actual origin of the word itself. Decision comes from the Latin roots de, meaning from, and caere, which means to cut. Think about that. When you make a true decision, you aren't just kind of picking an option off a menu. You are committing to a very specific result and completely cutting yourself off from any other possibility, period. There is a massive, massive difference between a fleeting thought like, oh, I want to get healthier, and actually drawing a hard line in the sand. Just stating a preference is basically a weak prayer. It's like saying, hey, I'd really love to make more money, as long as I don't really have to do anything extra. But making a true decision, that means setting an unshakable baseline standard for your life. It means deciding once and for all what you'll accept and what you absolutely will no longer tolerate, even if literally everything goes wrong and the whole world rains on your parade. But okay, if we know all this, why do we still hesitate? Why do we procrastinate even when we know exactly what we need to do? What is that hidden engine that's driving our failure to act? You know you want to start that business or ask that person out or finally get your finances in order, and yet you freeze. Well, the answer lies in the deeply ingrained, subconscious way our nervous system evaluates every single choice we face, every single day. And it boils down to this. Everything you and I do is driven by a deep subconscious need to either avoid pain or gain pleasure. This is it. This is the ultimate hidden engine. We don't act based on what our intellect logically tells us is the right thing to do. We act based on what our nervous system associates with pleasure, and we run far away from what it associates with pain. Every single time you procrastinate, it's just because in that exact moment, you genuinely believe taking action is going to be more painful than putting it off. That's exactly why we self-sabotage. We fear the immediate, short-term discomfort of discipline way more than we value the long-term reward. And this short-term focus, it's a total trap. We grab that quick hit of pleasure from skipping the gym or eating a donut, and we completely ignore the massive long-term pain of deteriorating health or lost confidence. To create any lasting change, you've got to flip the script. You have to actively link massive pain to your old bad habits and incredible, undeniable pleasure to the new discipline. The philosopher Seneca had a brilliant observation about this exact trap. He said, "A man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary." For most people, the fear of loss is just so paralyzing that they actually suffer in advance. They refuse to take the risks they need to get what they genuinely want. Our fear of potential pain, whether that's fear of rejection, losing money, or even just the fear of being hungry on a new diet, it keeps us completely locked in our current conditions. We try so hard to avoid short-term pain, but by doing that, we basically guarantee our own long-term failure. Look at these contrasting examples. They perfectly highlight how our personal, internal definitions of pain and pleasure completely shape our destinies. Take Donald Trump. His driving pain was always about being second best. He literally equated that with failure, which drove him to aggressively accumulate wealth and status. Then, on the exact opposite end of the spectrum, you have Mother Teresa. She linked immense, unbearable pain to seeing other people suffer, and she found her ultimate pleasure in alleviating their misery. It's the exact same twin forces driving both of them. It just depends on how we wire our own nervous systems. So how do we take control of that wiring? Well, we make 3 master decisions every single second of our lives, and consciously controlling them is how we actually sculpt our experience. Number 1, what are you focusing on right now? Number 2, what meaning are you attaching to it? Like, is this a fun challenge or is it an absolute disaster? And number 3, what action are you going to take? Seriously, if someone out there is enjoying greater success than you in any area of life, it is simply because they're making these 3 master decisions differently than you are.
Think about Billy Joel for a second. The guy hit absolute rock bottom and even considered suicide when his early career stalled out and his relationship ended. Before all the fame, he was broke, sleeping in laundromats, and dealing with severe depression. But then he changed what his situation meant to him. He checked into a facility, got a massive dose of perspective, and realized a crucial truth. God's delays are not God's denials. Short-term setbacks do not dictate your ultimate destiny. By simply shifting his focus, he turned the whole thing around and went on to achieve phenomenal world-changing success.
All right, so how do we practically put all of this into action? Enter the ultimate success formula. It's beautifully simple, really. First, decide exactly what you are committed to achieving. Not what you'd like to have, but what you are committed to. Second, take massive action toward it. Third, pay super close attention to what's working and what isn't. Don't just blindly keep doing the same thing. And finally, be absolutely flexible. Keep changing your approach over and over until you get the exact result you want. If you want the ultimate proof of this formula, look at Soichiro Honda's incredible journey. It perfectly shows how relentless long-term action can overcome even the most disastrous short-term conditions. In 1938, the guy literally pawned his wife's jewelry to design piston rings, and Toyota rejected them. He got mocked by his own teachers. When he finally won the contract, he couldn't get the concrete he needed to build his factory. So what did he do? He invented his own concrete-making process. Then his factory gets bombed twice during the war, and whatever was left gets completely leveled by an earthquake. But he never, ever stopped changing his approach. He didn't stop there. After the war, Japan was hit with a massive gas shortage. Honda couldn't even drive his car to go get food for his family. So he just attached a tiny little motor to his bicycle. Suddenly, everyone wanted one, but he had zero capital to build a manufacturing plant. His solution? He sat down and wrote personal letters to 18,000 different bicycle shop owners across Japan. And you know what? He convinced 5,000 of them to fund his idea. The lesson here? If you persist and if you consistently change your approach like Honda did, we will either find a way or make one. The how will always eventually reveal itself. Ultimately, your conscious choices are infinitely more powerful than your environment. Benjamin Disraeli hit the nail on the head when he said, "Man is not the creature of circumstances, circumstances are the creatures of men." Human history is entirely shaped by people who just flat out refuse to be victims of their conditions. People like Rosa Parks or Lech Walesa. People who simply made an uncompromising decision about what they would no longer tolerate. When you finally hold yourself to a higher standard like that, the environment has no choice but to bend to your will. So here's what I want you to do today. Take a moment right now to flex that decision-making muscle and take your very first real step toward shaping a new destiny. Because let's be honest, all of this information is absolutely worthless unless you actually act on it. So, what is that one clear-cut decision you've been putting off? What is it? Make it right now. Cut off all other possibilities, link massive, intense pleasure to taking action, put both of your oars in the water, and start paddling your life in a completely new direction. What's it going to be?